We are now recording.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody to our third HERlarious session in conjunction with Funny Women. I'm delighted that you've joined us this evening. My name's Maggie and I run the WEConnect International campaign here in Europe, and I'm joined by Lynne Parker from Funny Women, who's going to give us a bit more of an intro to the presenters tonight. But thank you for joining. I know it's a very sunny evening where many people are, so I'm really excited that you're here with us. As I said, it's the third one we've done. Lynne and I wanted to bring, I don't know, a little bit of levity and difference to all the sessions that you're probably looking at and all the different training things that you're probably doing, but just to bring a bit of Funny Women magic to the party. And I hope that you enjoy. There'll be a chance. We've got three presenters. We've got Jo and Janet and Sooz at the end. Looking forward to it as always. Lynne, I will let you do more detailed intros. But thank you very much for joining us and enjoy.
Well, thank you, Maggie. Well, we're delighted to be here again. I know it's hot and I know we're all zoomed out, but we're still dealing with the chaos that is being, certainly here in the UK. I can't vouch for the people in Nairobi and Germany and Ohio and we've got people from all over, but maybe we can chat a bit about that later. But actually, you know, chaos is still reigning here in the UK. And before we came on here tonight, we were talking about how we just don't know what's going to happen next. So this is to give perhaps an hour to take a little bit of time out to unpack that, discuss it, enjoy being in each other's company, even though it's over Zoom. And, you know, my big thing with Funny Women, we do a lot of corporate work as well as comedy work. And our role really is to bring a sense of fun into the workplace. So hopefully you'll take that away with you after tonight. So I'm not going to talk for too long because we've got some amazing people to talk to you and I want you to hear from them rather than me. I'm going to introduce you first of all to we actually, just to preempt that slightly, we have Funny Women has an advisory board, and our next speaker, Jo Fletcher-Cross, is on our advisory board, but we also have Ali Powell here tonight and Tracy Barr here tonight. So if you look for them in the boxes, they'll wave at you. We've also got them here tonight, so I might get them to say a little word about it at the end, perhaps bring them into chat. But thank you, all of you, for being here. So without further ado, Jo is going to talk a little bit about how to press mute when we need to scream. I think we've all felt like that over the last 3 months or however long it is. I've even lost track of how long we've been in lockdown now. It was 10 weeks. It must be nearly 3 months. And you know, Jo has quite a lot of experience of dealing with her own brand of chaos and juggling a very busy job as a journalist and editor and playwright with a bit of stand-up comedy, as a lot of people in our industry do. She's the editorial manager of a very well-known independent publishing house. I don't know if she's going to talk about that. Overseeing 50 publications. That is a recipe for chaos, Jo, if ever I heard one. But she's also been and performed at festivals like Just for Laughs in Montreal and the Edinburgh Fringe, surely. Yes, yeah. So I'm going to shut up and let Jo talk. Welcome to the stage. We do applause on these, just so we can see you.
I love seeing you.
We look like seals, but what the hell?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi. So yeah, I'm here to talk to you really about how to keep it together on the endless video calls that we have to do these days. Lynne's really mentioned what I do anyway for a job. Like she said, I'm editorial manager at a publishing company. We publish National Geographic Traveller, so lots of travel. We run festivals, we do all sorts of things. And on the side, I am a stand-up comedian. So my entire job revolves around travel and live events. So it would be fair to say it's been a fairly stressful few months for me. But I haven't killed anyone yet, so I think that's why I'm here. So as well as being quite a stressful job at the best of times, we now all work from home. I was just reading some stats before this, and it said that before the crisis in the UK, 7% of the workforce worked from home full time, and that now it's 38%. And I don't know about you, but I know plenty of people, civil servants, people who work for the NHS, people who work for global financial institutions who've been told that they'll be working from home for the foreseeable future, certainly to next year. So here we are. How are we going to hold it together? Those of us with kids, people have mentioned kids running around. We have to deal with that too. I've got a 9-year-old who's currently being homeschooled by my husband and I've got a 17-year-old stepdaughter who's currently working towards her final year at school in the garden. This is not a plush office complex, as you can see. This is my stepdaughter's bedroom. She's been shunted up to the attic, which used to be my husband's office, so he's now working at a desk downstairs. On top of that, we've got 2 absolute idiot cats, one of whom who likes to get on all my Zoom calls. The only reason she's not here tonight is that it's hot and she's too lazy to climb the stairs in the heat. So that's what we're dealing with. I'm not alone in this. I know I'm not. I've already seen Suze's cat and heard other people's children. So it's difficult. And I think one thing before I start to remember is that we're all the same, aren't we? We're all in this. So, you know, if you see someone else's chaos and you forgive them, remember they're probably going to forgive your chaos too. So don't worry too much about the chaos, but how can we keep it looking as if we might have it together? When this all began, I spent a week at home. I think a lot of people were the same, just kind of staring at the computer screen, wondering how I was going to get anything done in the middle of a pandemic with my child, with the cat. Actually, aside from some disasters, for a job that requires constant communication, it's kind of been okay. Today, our internal server went down and it was press day, and nobody's crying yet, so I think we're okay. The thing that's staring us all in the face more than ever is our actual faces. So here we are, we're on screen all the time, aren't we? It forces us to confront ourselves in quite a stark way. And I think one of the things about doing comedy and also presenting a lot of live events in my day job is that I was already prepared for that in a way that I didn't expect. So as a comedian, I record all my sets, usually an audio recording, but if I can, I'll video the whole set and then I watch it back the next morning. And that is as hideous as it sounds. It's horrific, but I do it every time, and I'm used to it now. I don't care. I don't care what I look like in it. But what I do pick up is the mannerisms, the things that maybe distract. If I'm like, oh, that didn't get the laugh, why not? It's because I was pacing back and forward. You know, I can assess my own performance and think about why something didn't come across, or equally why something did come across really well. And I think that's what Zoom can really help us with. Don't be afraid of that. Watch yourself. Don't you can apparently turn off the view of yourself in Zoom. I haven't figured out how, but don't do it. I'm here to plead with you. Don't do it. Look at yourself. See how you come across. You know, think about yourself. It's okay. And also, if you're watching someone else who's really engaging or makes you want to turn off, think about that too. Why are they engaging? Is it because they're really lively? Is it because they're animated? Is it because you want to see what books they've got in the background? You know, whatever that is, you can harness those things. That's fine. If you can see problems in yourself, then you can change them. That's it. If you think, I don't like the way I look when I do that, then catch yourself and don't do it. Also, rehearse. Love to be the kind of comedian who steps on stage and I'm a brilliant improviser and I can do 20 minutes on something I've seen in the corridor, but that's not really me. I can riff on a subject, but when I get up on stage, I've got a structure in mind, like most comedians, and key lines that I've committed to memory. Now, that's not the same if I'm presenting a speech or if I'm running an event. I've got notes, but if you are going to go into a meeting, you know you've got something that you really want to get across, and perhaps you're going to be going into a Zoom meeting that are full of quite loud voices. It can be difficult, and when you've got your chance, you really want to take that chance. Rehearse, use these techniques. You can write down what you need to say, and you can practice it. You can go on Zoom or other video conferencing things are available, I believe. You can go on there and set up a call with yourself. So just press join a meeting and practice. See what you look like, see how it feels. You know, if you feel a bit stupid doing that, then, you know, don't turn off the camera, but give it a go. It's really worth doing. I do it quite a lot if I'm in a very senior editorial meeting with all the men across the world. I'll quite often, you know, stick the point that I want to make on my computer so that I know I'm going to say it. So yeah, that's another thing. That's a big thing. Rehearsal and our faces. I've covered those. Organisation. I think all of you are pretty organised. I've got a feeling that you probably are. I'm quite an analogue person when it comes to presentations. I'm perfectly at home with technology, but when I'm doing a talk or running an awards ceremony or whatever that is, I like to have little cue cards. And the real blessing about working on video conferencing is I can just have them right here on the desk. And I really love that. So, write it down, have it there. Make sure you know where it is. Don't have everything everywhere. You can keep it all together, have everything written down in front of you. If you need to look at notes, that's fine, nobody cares. One thing, I presented an event on Tuesday night for National Geographic Traveller, and it was an event on Japan, and it was an event on crafts in Japan. And one of the people who I was involved with was on the panel, was very adamant that we couldn't say that anything was traditional for various reasons about kind of colonialism and attitudes. But he was like, don't say traditional. And of course I thought, oh, I'm going to say traditional at least 10 times. So I had post-its all around the perimeter of my computer saying, don't say traditional, don't say traditional. And I only said it once, so I think that's probably a success. Yeah, it really worked. Nobody can say it. It's brilliant. You can have notes up everywhere. So take advantage of that while we've got it. Let's harness it. The other thing is how you look. Now, I can see you all, most of you, and you look brilliant. You look wonderful, gorgeous women. It's tempting to sit around in your pajamas, and I encourage you to do that. Be free, sit around in your pants if you want, it's fine. I mean, maybe when there's a call, put some clothes on, but do what you like, be comfortable. But if you're on show and if you're presenting or you're having to make an important point, then make sure that you are comfortable and that you feel good in what you're wearing. Now, it's a bit nerve-wracking to say, hey everybody, think about what you're wearing on a call, because I know you'll all be going, what's she wearing? Why has she chosen that? I'm wearing a dress today that I really love, and I'm wearing it because I can't wear it to work normally because it's really long and I'm really short. So if I get on the escalator, I get on the tube, I trip over and hurt myself really badly. So I'm really enjoying that I can wear it. I bought a sequined catsuit just before lockdown, which was meant to be for a show that I was doing, a solo show that was going to be running from a few weeks ago and would be going up into festivals, etc. And obviously that's not happening. So now I've just got a sequined catsuit in my wardrobe, and so I'm just wearing that on a lot of Zoom calls. I would have worn it tonight, but it's a bit sweaty, so I don't have it on now. But I just wear it for everything now. I've turned up to kind of Tuesday morning managerial meetings wearing it because people need to see it. So, and I feel great in it. I feel it makes me laugh and I feel good in it. So, you don't have to be sitting in a suit, but feel comfortable. Know that you're going to feel okay when you see yourself in something. I've got a favourite black top that I've stopped wearing for important meetings because it shows up all the cat hair and just the filth of my house. So I don't wear that to meetings anymore because I know I'm going to be distracted by my dandruff on the Zoom call. So I take that one off and wear something different. And think about backgrounds as well. I genuinely think that one of the real delights of lockdown is that we've all got to see into each other's lives. I'm really nosy and I love seeing people's houses. It's really great. Like I said, this is my stepdaughter's room. It's not a fancy office. There's a bed here. I can't pretend that there isn't. But I like that, and I like to see it in other people. I think it's okay. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable and say, look, I'm working here because I have to. People do put up different backgrounds. Lynne's got an incredible one on just now. That's fine. But if you're going to have a background on for something important, then I urge you to test it out first and practice with it. The event that I was working on Tuesday that I was talking about, the client insisted that we all had backgrounds, and while that worked fine for almost everyone, one of the participants, every time she moved forward, it reflected in her eyes and looked as if she was possessed. So she was a really very serious Japanese ceramicist, and every time she moved, it looked like she'd been taken over by Satan. So I urge you, don't feel like you have to have a background. You don't have to pretend that you're in some cool Soho office with your background. We know you're not. One I did a few weeks ago was on Spanish food, with lots of Spanish food experts and Jose Pizarro, the chef, and he was in his restaurant, and that was really cool. And one of the other women was in this beautiful place in Spain, and that was really cool. And I just was in here, but I put a poster up of Spain in the background. So, you know, make an effort if you like. But I felt good. Try it out first. That's my advice to you. And my final point is that what I want you to really remember is that your skills are still your skills. The skills that you had before lockdown are still the ones you have now. I know we're all supposed to have written a novel, we're all supposed to have learned a new language, but if you haven't managed that, that is okay, it's fine. But if you were brilliant at leading a meeting before this started, then you are still brilliant at leading a meeting. If you were a warm and engaging presenter before this started, you still are, and that's even more valuable in these times when we're staring at screens. You know, if you're brilliant at listening, if you don't want to join in but you're great at taking notes and you go away and you think and then you come back with ideas, that's still your skill. So just, you know, whatever you do, press mute when you need to scream and always be you. That's all I have to say.
Brilliant. There's some brilliant questions. Brilliant, Jo. Brilliant. We haven't pressed mute. I'm not screaming. It's all good. There's some great questions. Jenny, that's a really good question, that. And I've thought about that. I've got a couple. Jenny said she delivers training and loves the fact that I don't have to hold everything in my memory. Lots of notes on her desk. Yeah, with you. But she started standing up to deliver my training, which is a very, I attended something and the person was standing up, and I found it mildly, I suppose it depends where you stand or how you stand, but I found it weirdly intimidating. But what do you reckon on that, Jo?
I have tried it, and like you, I've seen people do it. I think it's effective if you're in a space where it can work. I think if I stood up in here, I've done it once or twice and it didn't feel very comfortable, and also I had to pile all my books underneath my computer to get it at the right height. I really miss seeing people's shoes. So, you know, I'd love to, if we could find a way just to be like, oh, there's
just not take our shoes off and wave
them.
Yeah,
I know, that's kind of a weird, I'm like, is that kinky? No, I just, but I think if it works for you and you feel comfortable, then you should absolutely 100% do it. I practice with it. I did it a couple of times, didn't feel super comfortable, so I probably won't do it again unless it's something that I think will require it.
I spend a lot of time getting the camera angle right to hide my increasingly double chins.
Embrace it.
I've noticed I got fatter as lockdown has gone.
I know, I am getting water on the screen.
Maggie has said that apparently IBM have issued their staff with IBM posters to put in the background.
They're quite quirky. They were a bit funky, just to have on the wall, a different IBM, just so they could kind of have it there if they wanted. But the B was a B, so it wasn't the normal IBM logo, but it was the I quite like that. A way to make your staff feel a bit connected, because they got sent them a physical thing in the post.
That's a really good idea, and it's and it's low tech as well. You know, all that can go wrong there is the blue tack falls off. You know, so that's
and I've got this rather snazzy backdrop tonight, but there are disadvantages with that. But I do have pop-up banners, and I've been using those sometimes, depending on where I decide to sit in the house. But really, a question I want to ask you, Jo, etiquette. When you're in a meeting and we can all see each other here, how do you kind of leave the meeting? Because I was on a meeting today and I thought, do I just leave? Or do I put my picture up first and then mute and then sort of kind of ease out to the meeting? What's the etiquette on that?
That's a good question, isn't it? We've been struggling with that with our live events. I don't know what you found, Lynne, but what we've been struggling with is stopping and starting. So at the start, it always feels a bit abrupt. We're like, so here we are. And at the end, it's, you know, we do these lovely panel conversations at National Geographic. And we talked, you know, I was talking to Pico Ear on Tuesday and just had, you know, incredible people. And at the end, we're like, right, bye, end call. Yeah. You know, I don't think I really have an answer to that. I think addressing it is helpful, but if you're in a group meeting, then I think just putting something in the chat saying I'm going, can't leave.
I like the way Jay has just said no one can leave now because we're all watching you, but there are a lot of people we can't see. I personally quite like to see people, and I'm also, like Jo, very nosy. And I like to see what people live in. Right, just check if there's other questions here. Yeah, Jenny again. Jenny, who's hiding, which is a shame. Show yourself, Jenny. Sure, lovely. Jenny says she has a cupboard that's exactly the right height There she is. Ah, and then she, as I presume, I think that's it, isn't it? Making sure that you get the camera right. Do you want to say something about that, Jenny?
Well, no, I'm eating, which is why I've got my camera off, which is what
It's
all
a
I
good
wanted
thing.
to say. Yeah, yes, but yeah, I'm just I'm lucky to have a cupboard the right height. But I think to people, I just look like I'm sitting down anyway, so it's just for my benefit.
Yeah, I know, but I think when you stand up, I know with public speaking and events generally, that whole thing of standing up and presenting does give you more of you know, you do feel more powerful and in command. So yeah, I think
maybe what we need to get are those desks that are designed all the time for you to stand up at.
Yes,
there's a whole piece around actually having a desk, and I think some of them are designed to go up and down. So if you can sit if you want, but you can stand up, and it's better for you. But Jenny, I totally agree about energy levels.
Yeah.
And I always work at home, so I have to say the last few months, but I'm standing up when I'm talking to people, and I walk around and I'm sat at my desk. They try to give that energy. So I totally agree with your comment about that. Very good point.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think what we'll do is we'll move on. And while we're talking about people who are good at presenting and used to performing, a few of you will be familiar with the wonderful Janet Ellis, who is an MBE and a brilliant author and does lots of things. But Janet, most of us will know from, depending on how old we are, we were talking earlier about my era being Valerie Singleton, so just putting it out there. But some of you will recognise Janet from Blue Peter. She is a woman of much more than that. We're going to have a little chat now. So I would suggest if you've got any questions for Janet, you start popping them in the chat box, and I'm going to bring you in. But I'm going to get, welcome Janet.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you. We haven't seen much of each other during lockdown because we've all got stuff going on. But Janet, I think the thing that I am really guilty, as you well know, of saying I'm going to write a book for about the last 5 years. And I know there are people on here who have written books as well. But Janet has managed to bash out 2 novels in the time that I've been talking about writing a book. But I think that's a really interesting topic to talk about because, and one of the books is called How It Was, somewhat prophetically as well, which was my summer holiday read last year, and it is utterly brilliant. Please read it. Out in paperback now. Yes. Go away from here and buy it on Amazon. But Janet, talk about that whole thing of how you get through the chaos to sit down and write.
Well, I think I've been doing it all my life, actually, because as obvious, you know, I've left it quite late to write at all. And like a lot of people, not naming names, Lynne, I have been talking about writing for even longer than that, to the point where I know most of the people I've been talking about it to initially were very supportive of the idea. And by the time the first one came out, obviously didn't think it was going to happen. For a lot of that time, that included me as well, because writing to me is the biggest exercise in confidence ever. You know, and I've presented a lot of live television, which I know is a daunting idea to many people, but I trained as an actress. I was used to the idea of working in theatre. I was used to the idea of learning scripts. Besides which, most importantly, for every other professional thing I've ever done, I've been part of a team. And I would always say, and it's true, I love being a team player. And for me, there's nothing better than live television or live theatre, because for those moments, you are all as important as each other. You know, it doesn't really matter if you're the most brilliant presenter, if the cameraman isn't doing their job. Everybody matters at exactly the same moment. It's very exciting. But as it went on longer, and as I talked about writing and didn't write and got quite close to it and then backed away, I thought, actually, what this is I'm not so much a team player, is I quite like passing the buck. I quite like it not being all about me, or most importantly, all my fault. And when I first wrote something and showed it to somebody whose opinion I respected, it is easily, bar anything, the most nervous I have ever been. Because it's still an audacious act to me that, you know, there's a lot of books being written. You know, now the bookshops are coming back, you will see it all over again. But even so, if you go on Amazon or any other book site, you will see there are a lot of books. And most things have already been tackled. Most big issues, most tiny ones have already been tackled. But as a writer, what you do is say to everybody, but I want to tell you what I think, how I see this. I want it to be my vision, which is incredibly audacious. Because as I say, it's been said before, and it is the most audacious thing to think, now hold everything, everyone. I know you think it's all been said, but I just want to tell you how I see it. And when I showed somebody this thing I'd written, this thing I'd begun to write, and was waiting for them to come back, I was 8 years old again. I was the kid in class who, in my 8-year-old report, it actually said, Janet needs to learn the difference between criticism and correction. And that's stood the test of time, because I've been writing stuff. You know, if I write anything for a magazine or a paper, the honest truth is somebody can come back to me about that and say, I think the first paragraph should go at the end. I think you should lose the bit in the middle. I have absolutely no problem with that. But when it came to my fiction and I started to write and I started to show it to people, if they said, there's something here, but the minute they got to the but, I either thought, well, one of us is the idiot and it's probably me. And I could not get any further to listen to anything like constructive criticism. But once I got to a certain point when the need to write absolutely outweighed what I felt afraid of, it was opening the floodgates as far as I was concerned. And I got over myself many, many times and actually put something down. And I think for anyone who wants to, and I so understand the wanting to and the not. I've got years of that. That is all my CV, is wanting to write a not for really a long time. I think because I imagined, and I think it's partly having an acting background too, that to write anything, I had to become a different person. I had to become Janet the writer. And actually, it's not rocket science, this. What I realized eventually is, that's who I am. That's who I am. So to come back to the theme of writing through chaos, I don't think there's anyone who writes anything at all who will ever say anything other than, if the chaos isn't happening in the world, in a pandemic, it is happening in here anyway, or it's happening in your life. There is no such thing, I think, as clear space to write in. And after all, you would imagine that in a lockdown, and I've talked to a lot of writers about this, in a lockdown, everybody will say, you've got all this time, how wonderful, now you can write. And you think, well, that's not how this is. Because first of all, the imposition of lockdown, the implications of what's going on in the wider world, the huge shock of it all that we were all dealing with in our various terrible, scattergun, amazing, wonderful ways, was only part of the problem. You know, we had to find a way to negotiate everything from homeschooling to how you were going to eat, to how you were going to get your hair done. We had big and small issues all at once in a tidal wave that we couldn't have prepared for, even if somebody had said, and how mad we'd have thought them this time last year, by this time this year, if I say to you, social distance, you'll know what I mean. I mean, there's all these phrases that we have as a common parlance, but we have dealt with, I mean, well done us. We have dealt with them in our various ways. We are still dealing with them. A lot of people have it very hard and will continue to have it hard. A lot of people have it hard and are finding their way miraculously out of it. And we will have this through us forever, like the rings on a tree, the people who live through this time. It is ineffably major. But if you want to focus on writing, I think you have to find your way through whatever chaos there is in the world to why it is you want to write in the first place, way beyond how you're going to do it, because that's a whole other thing. And I have sat in many of those readers groups where a published writer, long before I was published, will inevitably be asked the question, so what's your regime? What's your routine? And I've listened to people saying either they get up at 5 and they write 1,000 words before breakfast, or they only ever write at 3 in the morning, or, you know, because if they have small children, they're waiting for somebody to be out of the house so that they can write. And every time I thought, oh, that's the secret. That's what I must do. But actually, like I say, it was in here all along, and I just had to find my way to the fact that I write when I can. So that's the first thing, write when you can. Don't become some different version of yourself that wants to write, because in doing that, you will lose the only thing that you have as a writer, the only one thing, and as Jo said, the one thing no one can take away from you, which is your voice. And once you have your voice on the page, you're a writer. And that's just the beginning.
Fabulous. Round of applause. I think we need that. Very, I absolutely identify with this write when you can and what you can, because I am definitely somebody who I will have an idea, usually ridiculously standing in the shower or sitting on the loo or whatever, and it just, that whole idea just comes to you in a minute, doesn't it? And you think, I've got to write it down. And I trained as a journalist. I think a few people might know that. And I spent my early part of my career writing for women's magazines. And so I have a very kind of quick burst. I think that's where I struggle with the book thing, because I don't have a big, long narrative in my head. I have lots of short ideas. So it's, I would say probably, you know, people like me, journalistic background, become an essayist or write short articles. I'm always saying to people that like writing in the comedy world, and they don't want to perform comedy, I say, write something for our website. We have a brilliant website. We have a great editorial platform, and we get a lot of people to write like that. But would you say, I think that's a good way to start, isn't it? Right, because you write a lot of articles and things.
Yeah. And yes, and also, I don't think anyone, I don't know, let's march them forward if they ever do, but anyone has a book fully formed in their head before they start writing. And for a long time, to be honest, I thought that's how writing went. You know, that you wrote your book, you showed it to someone, they went, oh, great, shall we look at covers? And of course, what actually happens is you write your book and then you carry on writing it, and you write it. And the only cure for that, and actually I was told this by a writer I really respect called Erin Kelly, when I was still writing my first book, going through several drafts, even approaching publication. You know, being approached by a publisher is only the phase when you're going to write several more drafts for them, having written several for yourself. And I said to her, you know, I keep on, every time I open this book, I can see something I want to change. You know, I said, how do you get past that? What's the cure? And she went, publication. And it's true. Because once it's in print, you can't change it. That's it, much as you'd like to. Then you're confronted, you know, if you're published, with reading it aloud, let's say at a literary festival, or perhaps coming across it a bit later, and you still want to get in and change, but you can't. So there is a cure, there is a cure. But I don't think that writing in short bursts, as journalists do, is any bar to writing a novel, because as I say, they don't arrive, you know, we're not just the conduit for a single thought that goes from your head to the page. It really is just the start. It's just the start. And I think the trick is, if there is any, is to write down the thing you're thinking and then let it sit there. Some people like to write a whole first draft, splurge all that. Others, and I'm one of them, go back over what they've written the day before. So begin a sort of edit, but it isn't really. It's just thinking, I don't need to do that there, or that person shouldn't say that, as I go. But then that's just the way I prefer to do it. And I've got plenty of friends who just write a whole thing pretty much, and then go back and go, some of this works, most of it doesn't, but they're unpicking what they've already structured. But I honestly don't think, you know, the first rule of writing is there aren't any rules. There really aren't. And, you know, if we marched ourselves into any bookshop and opened every single first page of every novel there is in there, which would take a while, we would find different structures, different things that people have been told not to do. You know, the number of times that you're told, oh, show, not tell, don't do all that descriptive passage. And then you will pick up a book, I don't know, let's say by Rachel Cusk. It's all descriptive passage. Hardly anyone says anything at all. So if you are strong enough in your voice, you will find a way to say what you want to say, and it will feel like the first time you've ever said it.
I think that goes also for people that want to write scripts and
oh yeah,
same process, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some really good comments. I'm just a couple of people said that where Charlotte and Jo both said more or less kind of when she's walking the dog, she talks to her phone, she writes notes down. I think that's very valid. I cannot stress the importance of journaling, just to dump stuff out. You know, if you have an idea, write it down, keep a notebook on you. I think handwriting is really important, actually. I think writing, you know, your innermost thoughts come out better with a pen or a pencil in your hand.
Gosh, no, really not me, because I have really tried to improve my handwriting, but my handwriting is so awful.
Oh yeah, so is mine.
So awful that I can spend really a long time, even with shopping lists, going, what is mayonnaise? What is that word? So yes, but I do carry a notebook. I do, and I really try and make sure it's legible. I make notes wherever, all the time. And sometimes I write scenes out of sequence. And I think that's a very good trick. Once you're into your novel, it's not to say you're getting bored, but you might be a bit bogged down. You might have got all your characters sitting around a dinner table and you cannot think how you're going to get them all to stand up again. Just jump cut to a few weeks, months, days, hours, minutes hence. Write something about that really engages you, and then go back, because you have this power. You can move those people around like you like. And especially writing my first book, I wrote several scenes, lots of scenes, like a patchwork quilt, out of context, knowing I needed to use them somewhere, but not being quite sure how I was going to stitch them or cobble them together.
Well, if anyone's read Janet's first book, it is quite extraordinary, and I lived through the genesis of it a little bit, because you told me where it was set and the name of the character, and then it ended up being called The Butcher's Hook. So it was very interesting to see how you actually did that and embroidered the whole thing together. And it was, as a friend, hearing that and knowing a lot of performers, a lot of people will kind of try their ideas out verbally with their friends and family, just to test things out. I don't think you were doing that necessarily, but
no, but also
with that.
And what I always advise people, because I've done quite a bit of mentoring now with writers, and my tip is say it aloud. Get used to reading it aloud, because first of all, I think it's the best way of, my particular bugbear with writing is to avoid repetition. You know, I think if you've said something one way, don't just find 3 pages on, you're repeating yourself. And the easiest way, I think, is to hear it. I'm not very fond of using the same word if I can find another one that works slightly better in a different context. But number one, it's for dialogue. You know, when you've got lots of characters, you want to give them all different voices. And the best way to do it is to become their interpreter. And that will feel very clunky for a lot of people at first, but you just have to get through it. I really do think it's the most useful tool. So if you can teach yourself to do that straight away and get over the fact that it sounds a bit weird and it feels a bit awful. And yeah, the dog walking thing, very key for me. My dog knows everything in my plot twists, very, very much so, and also has listened to a lot of dialogue. But I do think it's just the way of working things out in a way that suddenly becomes a different alive for you, and then you can go back and write it and then rewrite it.
A really good question from Kylie, who says, speaking of confidence, as someone who has a case of imposter syndrome, don't we all, how do we overcome the struggle? How does she overcome the struggle with herself and feeling that she won't be eloquent enough on paper? Well, that's sort of imposter syndrome in progress there,
absolutely,
isn't it? We all second guess ourselves.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all a fatal combination usually of I'm brilliant, I'm terrible. I mean, it starts in your teens, I think, because if you say to a very small child, are you fab? They'll just go, yes. You know, it doesn't occur to them. We grow into that way of thinking about ourselves, which is a lot to do with how we want to be seen, how we're seen, the running commentary we keep, the value judgments we're making about everybody else. Almost impossible to lose that. But I think as somebody who has unwittingly really chosen 2 professions, acting and writing, where when you tell people that's what you want to do, their first reaction is never, oh, great. It's always, well, it's really hard. You know, if you say you want to act, people go, well, most people are out of work, you know. And if you say you want to write, they go, so hard to be published. You just have to grasp hold of something that says, why not me? Why not me? And it may not be you the first time around. I mean, I've got a lovely friend, Melanie Cantor, who's now enjoying great success with her first book. It's a 10-year process. It's not her first book. It's the 5th book she's ever written. She may go, they've never been published. She may go back and revisit those, but she kept going. So just keep, you know, there'll be a little tug of something that just says, I know you think you can't. I know you think you're not worth it. But the fact you're even articulating a desire to think it might be you means that there is the tiniest but very strong thread holding you to your ambition. Don't let go. Don't let go. All the time. Keep hold.
I think that's advice for everything, Janet. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Jo back in, just if we got a few more questions. Jenny Garrett has written a fantastic book, more of a sort of self-help book, you would describe it, Rocking Your Role. Inspiration to me. Yes, I know I have got to write this. I've even got a literary agent. That's how bad I am. But I'm going to do it. Lockdown is frustrating. I was going to kind of just wanted to, you know, that we all have kind of promised ourselves that we'd have time or what have you. I've suffered from terrible lack of concentration. It's hard to do things in long bursts. So how do we get over that? What do we do? How do we get over ourselves? How do we get past that? I got very angry about people talking about baking sourdough, and wrote probably my favorite article of lockdown about that, because I got so annoyed. But sometimes out of anger and frustration, you write the most brilliant thing. What do you reckon, Jo?
Oh, I write a lot of good things out of anger, yeah. I think so.
A lot of comedy is written out of anger, actually.
Yeah, that's all of it. It's difficult, isn't it, with, we've talked about imposter syndrome before on different events, but I think Janet's so right saying that the idea that you're kind of thinking, maybe I could do it, suggests that there's something deep down within you that thinks you can. So you just have to listen to that voice and just think, you know what, I am actually brilliant. And just go with that and try not to listen to the other voice that says, no, you're not.
I think as women, we're bad at that, aren't we? Saying we're not good at telling each other, ourselves, that we're brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring in, I'm going to just call this a little bit to a close. I'm just reading through. There's another, Maggie's put a note about the book Midwife. Maggie, who is that? That's, who is that? The book Midwife?
Mindy Gibbons-Klein. She can help you write a book in 90 days. Should you want? I think a whole thing is basically around writing a little bit every day. It's a structure, and some people do it. But I mean, the other thing that we see a lot of is our business owners writing a book to use that as a way to, you know, share more about the work they do. Say like Jenny, you were one of the first people who wrote about some, you know, kind of this rock and your role and female breadwinners and all this kind of stuff in the city. And I know when you wrote those books, it was a while ago, and that's, you know, and I think that's also a thing. Somebody said about how can we get more women to write, and sometimes it, certainly in the context of a WEConnect, it's maybe business books, but I know plenty of our business owners are super
creative.
Yes, that's it. So you've probably all got a book inside you.
We want the female equivalent of the Wolf of Wall Street, don't we? I mean, you know, we need a little bit of sex scandal and rock and roll from the business world. I think we're all very straight-laced. I think we need a little bit of fun. I'm going to, I want to give Sooz a little bit of time because we might want to chat to her afterwards, but I'm going to introduce our final guest, who's the wonderful, beautifully made up and coiffed tonight she is, because she's been doing makeup tutorials on TikTok. I don't even understand TikTok because I'm such an old Luddite. But I would like to bring Sooz in, who's going to do is this a part talk, part entertainment? Yeah. Whatever. But Sooz was in the funny women land. We used to have a variety award, and Sooz won it in 2012. We should revive it, Sooz. We should revive it. So I'm going to get you to give us a little bit of entertainment, and then we will come back at the end and just see if there's, I'll keep an eye on the questions. And obviously Sooz may have some things to add about imposter syndrome and all the other things we're talking about. So welcome to the stage on Zoom, Sooz Kempner.
Hi guys. I want to say that just our shot is my mother, Anna Kempner, Sooz Kempner Part 1, and when Janet came to speak, Mum went, "Oh my God, it's Janet Ellis." So thank you, Janet. And while you were talking, I immediately bought your latest book, and that'll arrive tomorrow, Mum. There you are.
Thank you.
It's worked well.
Google's Amazon.
You can check as well. You can check the Amazon sales. It's a Google company. Yeah. So I'm a stand-up comedian, and I have been having to find a way to make that work in lockdown. A lot of that seems to be sitting in this exact part of my house and doing gigs to camera like this, which means that a painting that my mum bought at Wilko's in about 1996 it's called The Three Kings, and it's been getting an awful lot of airtime. That's Arkle, Red Rum and Desert Orchid. So there you go, edutainment. I really actually quite have found, I don't know how I'm going to go back on the stage because I haven't worn shoes for a gig since late March. I can do my hair and makeup and sort of put a top on and then just wear pajama trousers. Sometimes I've got a blanket over my legs and I'm doing gigs in the style of an old war colonel. But what I talk about when I do stand-up is I talk about the stuff that made me who I am. So in lockdown, I've been revisiting my childhood. And the thing I loved to do the most when I was a kid is play on my Sega Mega Drive. So I've been getting all my old Mega Drive games out and playing them so that I can find the one that's aged the best and the one that's aged the worst. And the Mega Drive game that has definitely aged the worst is, here we go, it's Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is a video game that came out at the launch of the Sega Mega Drive in 1989, before we knew. And it is basically Michael Jackson. You go around different levels, kicking open doors, looking for children who get you points. People think that that's part of a joke. No, that's just the game. It's the only time a video game has ever doubled as a confession. But the video game I found that's aged the best is actually Sonic, the Sonic series. And my favorite character in the Sonic series is Knuckles. Now, Knuckles is an echidna, clearly, okay? And Knuckles is a character who came to this series a bit later, and he doesn't really work on his own, okay? He works better with other characters. He doesn't really work on his own. He only ever had one solo outing, and it was on a game that came out on a console called the Sega 32X. It was called Knuckles Chaotix, and it just didn't work. The Sega 32X, if I can describe it to you, I don't want to be too disparaging about it as a console, but if you had one, and that means you vote Lib Dem, sorry. So Sonic and Knuckles, they work together, but Knuckles doesn't really work on his own. We all remember his very first outing, which was in 1930 in Steamboat Knuckles. Now, that really revolutionized animation, as we know, but he didn't really come into his own until the 80s when he teamed up with Tom Hanks and a dog for Turner and Hooch and Knuckles. Madcap hilarity ensues. And of course, in the 90s, he got to show his sassy side in Sex and the City and Knuckles. Yeah, we all remember that. Hey, Knuckles, who you been fucking? I don't want to talk about it, Samantha. Their conflict really made the series pop. And he, of course, brief foray into art house cinema with The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover and Knuckles, which obviously he daringly went full frontal. Now, this is what I've been doing on Zoom to make a living. And it seems particularly weird in this setting that that's what I've brought to you. But thank you very much for watching it. What I'm going to close with is I am filled with optimism for the state of the world for the first time since probably December. The election in December, whatever your politics are, mine are, that it wrecked me. I found the election horrendous. After the election, I spent 3-4 months going, I don't know a way out of this other than a world war. And for the first time since lockdown began, I suddenly have hope for the future. I feel like maybe the far right won't win. If you're far right and you're in this chat, I'm not going to say sorry, I'm just going to say don't be. So I'm filled with an optimism I didn't have before. I'm particularly filled with optimism when people are throwing statues of slave traders in rivers. In America, they've got a similar thing. They're taking down Confederate statues. I learned something, and this is what I'm going to close with. The Confederacy lasted 5 years. That's all. It lasted 5 years. Sega's least successful console, the Saturn, lasted longer than the Confederacy. So I don't think we need statues commemorating it. I think just put up statues of Sonic and Knuckles, and that's all I have to say.
Oh, lovely. I love a controversial ending.
Not controversial?
No, not really. No. Somebody rather disarmingly turned their picture off on a swear word. So apologies. There's etiquette of doom here.
What swear word?
I did an F, Janet. I'm sorry.
I didn't even hear it.
Brilliant. I was going to ask you just to tell people about your lockdown filming that you've been doing. It is absolutely brilliant. Get a bit of a plug for that.
Oh, thank you.
For the fans.
I've got to get back to it actually. When they announced on, what was it, March 18th, they announced EastEnders was going to be down to 2 episodes a week because they couldn't film anymore. I am the biggest EastEnders fan on the planet, and I was born 2 weeks before EastEnders began, and I haven't missed an episode since 1994. And basically, I decided I'd start filming my own episodes. So there's a series on YouTube called EastEnders Lockdown, featuring me playing Doc Cotton and numerous other comedians from the circuit playing characters from EastEnders.
It's very funny.
Wow.
Put a link in there. Please put a link in the chat because
we'll
sure there are. I mean, people in Ohio and Germany and that will probably not know what the hell we're talking about, and it will give you a very interesting viewpoint of British life.
So you say I did panto with Anita Dobson.
Oh yes.
At the height of, it was the Christmas when she and Den did the duologue.
Yeah, nice, sweet.
So she and I, every day, twice a day, sang the EastEnders theme tune.
You get Janet on to guest.
Janet, I'm a bigger fan than ever before.
It's a badge, isn't it? It's quite a badge to wear.
That's amazing.
And I actually went to that panto to see, and I didn't actually know Janet then.
Ah,
There's another. Just before I met her, I took my children. I don't think it was my children actually. It was probably my nieces to see the panto. So there you go. We were.
oh wow.
Wow.
Well, we're running out of time, so I'm gonna. I would just quite like for them to say hello and hi, and just wave at the camera. So, and if you've got any last tips for creating some calm out of chaos in one sentence, please feel free to say it. So, a big hello to Ali Powell, who's sitting there in some exotic background. Ali, have you got any last tips?
Wine
of business. Wine.
That's
a great. That's actually, Ali is a wine expert, aren't you? As well, you do run a wine club. Yes.
Wine.
Yes.
I do like wine as well. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a great tip. Tracy Barr, also chair of our advisory board. Tracy, one tip from you.
So great time just to make sure that when you come out of this, that what you really love and want to do with your life is aligned to what you're actually doing when you come out of it, work or play wise.
Lovely, that's lovely. And she's going to kill me for asking her, because she'll probably say I haven't got any now, but I'm going to introduce you to lovely Emily Kennedy Barnes, who has been honestly, I couldn't have done all these events without Emily. She's wonderful, and Emily it's always calm. And I know that has a lot going on in the background as well. So have you got a tip for us, Emily?
I'm going to go with Ali and just say lots of wine.
We're all on the wine. I think we should all go and have a glass of wine. Okay, last plug for us. We have a big fundraiser on Tuesday, the 30th of June. I have managed to persuade our very own matron stroke patron, Jo Brand, to host an online version. Well, it's our homage to Have I Got News for You? And we've called it Have We Got Women for You? It will all be on Zoom. The tickets are a tenner. The money that we raise is going towards funny women. By the way, if donations, welcome. We'll put a slide up in a minute. And the Fawcett Society, who we do an awful lot of work with, who are a wonderful charity, again, all about women having a voice and that. And also Women in Journalism, which is another brilliant organisation, along with WEConnect, which is another brilliant organisation. So please buy tickets and join us. Jo is hosting. We have for the comedians, Shazia Mirza, Lucy Porter, and Athena I can never say Kublenu, thank you. And on the it's hacks versus comedians, and for the journalists we've got Helen Lewis, Aisha Hazarika, and Eva Simpson. So we've got great panelists. They're all doing it for nothing. It'll probably be chaotic. It won't be chaotic because Emily's producing it. It's going to be wonderful. But, please buy tickets. If you can't make it at the time, you can buy a ticket and we will send you, you will get the recording of it. But it's about as close as we get to live at the moment because none of us know what's going to happen. You've all been absolutely brilliant. I think that's the plug. If you like the idea of doing comedy, we've been running comedy courses online all through lockdown. We're doing the last one for a while, 20th to the 24th of July. These will all be on our website. Maybe Emily will put a link in the chat. And what else do I need to say? Oh yeah, and we do a bit of a networky, more of a comedy thing called Comedy Workout, and that'll be on the 23rd of July. And then I'm going to go and lie in a dark room for a couple of weeks. Not having to go to Edinburgh this year, I can actually take a bit of time out, which is, I think we're all, although it's awful, and Jo was going to go to Edinburgh and we're all a bit upset about that, but let's use this time positively. So huge thanks to Jo Fletcher-Cross, Janet Ellis, and Sooz Kempner for being here tonight, and to Maggie and the team at WeConnect.
Thank you, Lynn.
A brilliant session. Round of applause. Let's have the sound off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Fabulous.